Let's move on to the fracturing of the woods. I'm going to drag out from the fields again and do a delete. Now this time we're going to delete the wood here. Okay. And then use delete now selected. That's going to isolate the woods for me. I'm going to press space 3 and then select the faces here. Make a maybe a big selection here, holding down Control and deselect that and that, and then do a delete. Now what this gives me is the wood that is on the Z direction. Their length is across the Z direction. So I'm going to call this guy Z direction. I'll drag this guy out to duplicate it. I'm going to name this guy X direction here and use delete now selected. The reason I do this is now I can shatter this into long shafts, but in order to do so I need to separate the directions so that I can really define that. Okay, so after this I'm going to create a transform. This transform will squeeze on the Z direction, so I'm going to press the Y button to toggle to scaling and just squeeze them in this way. Alright. Afterwards, I'm going to create a scatter to scatter a few points on it. I probably don't need that much. Turn off the relaxing. Okay. And then fracture it using Voronoi fracture. Okay. Now as you can see they're being fractured like this. And now I'm gonna Control C, copy the transform, Control V, paste it down, and connect that to the Voronoi fracture. For this transform, I'm gonna actually scale it back, so 1 over that. Okay. Now you can see the shattering is being stretched to something longer. Okay. Now I can go ahead to and change the amount of scattering points to have more if I wanted to get decent amount of shafts. Let's do a explode view and take a look. Right. So that's going to give me the shattering that looks more like the shattering a wood plank would have. Again, the idea is we shatter along the we squeeze them in, do the shattering, and squeeze them back. Okay. Now for this guy, I'm not really worrying too much about it because if I do want to do that, I have to think about what's happening on this guy. It's not that easy to do. So as long as it has some part that is breaking correctly, I'm happy with it. Okay. Now never try to do perfections because there's no perfection, right? There is only good enough, and you just have to make it good enough, meaning eye-pleasing and really tell the story. So I'm gonna disable that explode view, grab these guys I created, alt drag to duplicate, and connect the X direction here. Now on this side, all I have to do is swap the scale here to the X direction. And also the same thing to this transform. Control Shift and click on it to disable the input there. Change that back to 1. And this guy will be the actual calculation here. Now we have the same result, same shattering on this set. Just to avoid similarities, we can go to the scattering and change the global C to 1 so that the iteration, the scattering will be a little different, so they're not the same. Alright, afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and merge them together. Result goes to a attribute wrangle on the primitive level. Let's make sure I do the same thing here before. Yes, I did. Just need to create the part again, so paste that in. I'm gonna call this guy wood. Oops. Finally, I need a null here and call it wood fractured. Okay. Now let me grab this part. Also give it a comment. Wood fracturing. Cool. So now we have finished all the fracturing together. Let's go ahead and merge them together using a merge. Okay. I do got a little warning here. Let's see what that is. Someone doesn't have density. Of course, we don't have that on the wood because we never really use density here. It's fine. That's not a big deal. The density will be initialized for these guys as 0, so now we're really worrying about that. Dragging down a null here. I'm gonna call this guy fractured. Cool. So that's gonna be all we do on the fracturing part. We have fractured these 3 different elements in different ways just to get some variations. Especially for the wood part, you really want to create those long shafts instead of the same as the other parts. So let's stop the tutorial here, and in the next one we're gonna go ahead and set up some of the packaging and then move on to dynamic. Okay, see you next time.